Voters in our region are looking to cast their vote in the upcoming primary election. Northwest Public Broadcasting and the League of Women Voters of Benton, Franklin counties want you to know the candidates. Recorded at the Washington State University Tri-Cities campus, this is Vote 2023.
Good evening and welcome to the 2023 Primary Election Candidate Forums. My name is Ravine Jimenez and I am a member of the League of Women Voters of Benton and Franklin counties. The League is a nonpartisan organization that neither supports nor opposes any candidate. In presenting these forums, it is our goal to provide opportunities for voters to become better informed about the people who are running for public office. These primary election forums have been pre-recorded in person by Northwest Public Broadcasting at the WSU Tri-City studio. They will also now be available at nwpb.org/2023. on the League's website and or Facebook page, through the Columbia Basin Badger Club, the City of Richland, and YouTube. Please go to lwv/bf.org to see the complete information for accessing any and all of these sites. The forums will be available through August 1st, Election Day. At this time, I would like to introduce our moderator, Matt Lovelace from Murrow College of Communication at WSU Pullman. Please welcome Matt.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters for that introduction. I am Matt Lovelace, a scholarly assistant professor of journalism at WSU, and tonight I'll be moderating two forums in primary races in Benton County. This is the beginning of our Vote 2023 coverage as we continue our years-long partnership with the League to bring you more information and insight into the candidates running for city, county, and statewide positions. Northwest Public Broadcasting's effort to shed more light on races that don't often get the coverage they deserve. Tonight, two primaries in Benton County will feature a Port of Benton race with 3 candidates and a Richland City Council race with 2 here in this program. And as always, let's set a few ground rules. This is not a typical debate format. We do not have rebuttals. We have, however, set aside some time for opening and closing statements and in between a number of questions provided by the League of Women Voters on several topics. The candidates have not seen these questions, and for the sake of fairness, everything's on a time limit. We are giving 90 seconds for opening statements for our candidates, and for the sake of ease, everything else will be on a 1-minute timer. That timer will begin at the end of each question. Now, I ask for no interruptions. We do understand candidates may be compelled to respond. That must be within those time parameters. We'll try to stay on topic and on time, and that is why I am here. So let's get right to tonight's program and a 3-person race for a seat on the Benton County Port Commission. Sitting down with me in our WSU Tri-City studios, our challenger Cliff Dyer, owner of Sundance Aviation in Richland. Former Port Director Scott Keller is here, and incumbent Christy Rasmussen, appointed to the position late 2021, now seeking election to the position as well. Thank you all for taking some time and being here with us today. Now, at this point, I have done enough talking. Our forum will begin with opening statements. I'll remind our candidates we'll do our best. You have a minute and a half for your openers, and barring a need to change it during the program, all the rest of the timers are set to 1 minute for your opening statements. Mr. Dyer, let's hear your time now.
Well, I always would rather the ladies go first, but okay, you set the rules on that one. I'm Cliff Dyer. I'd like to be the Port Commissioner in the next position that's being elected this November. I think I bring a certain unique set of skill sets. That I've been an entrepreneur in the Tri-Cities since 1975. Had 2 successful businesses and had many employees and taught skills and have learned skills. And I think that brings a unique set to the table that my fellow candidates here don't necessarily have with them. So I'm going to run on that. I'm a small business guy looking at small business reasons, and I'm experienced in that arena.
And since you have more time, you have 50 seconds, what makes you the best candidate?
Well, I do think I do bring a uniqueness and a freshness to the seat, and I hope the constituency sees that too. I think that small business needs to be represented in these small venue governments like the Port of Benton. We bring an understanding of how it really takes and the struggles it takes to make a small business work. We're people from the academia side or the government side. They've lived a little bit of a protected life from those issues, and so I can bring real understanding to that table.
Cliff Dyer, thank you very much for being here. Mr. Keller, your opening statement, sir.
Matt, thanks for having us, and League of Women Voters, thank you for inviting us. Well, I spent about half my life at the Port of Benton. I was 13 years as the Assistant Director, Airport Director, and I was appointed in 2002 as the Executive Director until 2019 when I retired. Now, it was the best job I ever had. I loved going to work every morning. It was not really a job, it was a lifestyle. When I retired, my goal was to become a commissioner. It was just something that's in my blood. It's something that I've wanted to do, and that's why I'm running. I think that I agree with Cliff. Small businesses should be a priority of the port, and when I was there for 30 years, that was one of the main priorities with the winery industry, the incubator situations, the helping small businesses start spin-offs of Pacific Northwest National Labs, etc. And as I said, I loved my job, and I'm going to love to be a port commissioner.
All right, Mr. Keller, thank you very much. And Christy Rasmussen here as well. Tell us why you're running for election.
Well, you know, I'd like to first thank the League of Women Voters. And I want to share a little bit about myself. My family moved here in 1963 so that my father could serve an apprenticeship. It really lifted us out of poverty. And every family should have this opportunity. The Mid-Columbia has blessed us with excellent education opportunities, stable housing, family wage careers, and my blended family of 5 children and 7 grandchildren choose to reside here, and they propel my deep commitment to this community. For me, it's vital that I listen to our community and lead with conviction to ensure decisions and actions reflect its collective values. I have volunteered in our community for over 40 years, and as a Rotarian, I truly believe in service above self. And leading by example is a legacy I leave my family and my community. I bring the same dedication to the port position. As the incumbent, I am uniquely positioned to champion our economic development and daily efforts to maintain and develop small business and industry while actively recruiting new. Championing value-added agriculture is imperative. We must remain laser-focused on retaining affordable power rates with reliable, all-the-above energy generation, ensuring our ag partners' products competitively get to domestic and global markets while relentlessly advocating for our dams. I am committed to my continued proactive participation in the collaboration and alignment of our community with regional, state, and federal partners to bring things like advanced manufacturing supply chain here, and perhaps an innovation cluster, ensuring our community will be leaders in cleanup to clean energy. I really, truly believe we are better. We are in a position to have great things happen here in our community, and I want to continue to be a part of it as a Port of Benton Commissioner.
All right. Well, thank you all three for your opening statements there. We'll get to a line of questioning now. All of these questions here provided by the League of Women Voters of Benton and Franklin County. You understand, give us a snapshot on where you stand on a number of issues here in the area. And for the first, we get at the port's mission. You get right there on the website. Opportunity happens here. And you touched on this topic a little bit, Christy. One of the keys to that is what's termed multimodal transportation. Look it up. There's a glossary term for you. How we get what we make here out to the masses. So, Mr. Dyer, what steps are or should be taken to increase that multimodal transportation to support Benton County's growth and, of course, the transfer of goods to other areas?
That's a great question, especially for the voters to understand that the port's mission is unique in the government model that we have. It has a strict mission to create jobs and opportunity through that multimodal. So this port has a waterway port, so it's unique to, not unique in that world, but it has airports, which are unique. It has 2 of them. It also has a rail system that it owns. So it really is plugged into what it's supposed to be. I mean, in roads and highways and businesses and buildings. So they're really well diversified to make a real big impact in the Tri-Cities. I do think that they've underutilized those assets. I can speak specifically, obviously, about the airport, as that's my environment. The investment that has been happening over the last 10 to 15 years with the port at the airport was substantial. There's been a number of shutdowns now, and that I don't see that reinvestment. And even myself, I choose not to reinvest in the Richland Airport at this time. So,
all right, Mr. Dyer, thank you very much. You kept it at 1 minute. Sorry, behind the scenes had some timer issues. These responses are set at 1 minute. You did perfect there. Mr. Keller, I'll turn that question to you. I'll sort of repose it for you as well. How do you increase, or what steps should the port take to increase that multimodal transportation that we talked about?
I think Cliff hit it right on the nose. With the airports, we need to invest a little bit more in the airports and make it more user-friendly. Just recently, there was leases used to have a long-term lease was 50 years. Actually, it was 20 years with 3 10-year options. And it's my understanding that the new leases are now 20 years maximum. Nobody's going to invest in a $1 million hangar with a 20-year lease. Just won't happen. The railroads, both the railroads, the railroad is served by Burlington Northern and Union Pacific. Very unique. It's one of the only 2 areas that I know of in the United States that offers the dual rail system. The other one's down in California around the Fresno area. And the port needs to take full advantage of the dual rail system and work with Burlington Northern and with Union Pacific to maximize what's going on here. There's a rail loop out there that brings in grain for cattle feed, and it's huge. It's huge business. There's a building that's there. It's about 80,000 square foot building, and it has basically large cranes for taking care of locomotives, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of opportunities for the railroads to increase their uses here.
All right, Mr. Keller, thank you very much. Ms. Rasmussen, question to you.
Yes. Well, so I'd like to speak to both of those areas. So at the airport, during the time that I've been commissioner, we've had some really great opportunities to make improvements, including $3.2 million we spent at the Richland Airport, where we installed new electrical, new LED lights to help the pilots on their landing and takeoffs. We have another $2.25 million coming in next year to be used at the Richland Airport to improve the taxiways, the aprons, and also there's an investment of about $1.5 million happening at the Prosser Airport. So we are investing in those things, and we've also, as most people in Richland or the Tri-Cities will notice, we just spent about $1 million improving the Van Giesen crossing and also Enans, and we have 3 more crossings up this year for refurbishment and improvement. So we're very excited about that. As for the rail, our short line rail has the 2nd highest tonnage in Washington State, and we're very proud of that. And it's amazing how many different companies want to use that rail. So we're very excited.
Well, thank you very much. And I'll tell you, we'll talk a little bit more about development as well, so we'll be able to expand on a couple of those topics in this program. And we'll get more specific, but to set the table with question 2, and I love sort of using this as educational for our viewers out there and voters out there. In your words, what's unique about a port district versus a city or a county, despite often that shared space? Mr. Keller, you're first for this one.
Well, 30 years of experience, I think I know the difference. The ports actually have a lot wider range of things that they can do. There's number one, there's 3 elected commissioners that the staff works with, and it takes 3 votes to get things done. You can call a special meeting at any time if there's an emergency or if there's something that needs to be, a decision needs to be made immediately. The flexibility is there for the ports to react and act quickly. The ports have their own set of laws, revised codes of Washington laws, and it gives the ports the opportunities and the ability to do certain things that the cities can't. The things that we do similar are build infrastructure, roads, we put in water sewer lines, et cetera, like that. We can do it quicker, better, faster, and I think we can also recruit quicker and make our sites more shovel ready than the cities can.
All right, great, Mr. Keller. Thank you. Ms. Rasmussen, you've been on the board for a bit now. What do you think is the difference, in your words, the distinction between a port and a city or county?
I would agree that we have the ability to move things quicker. The other position the port is in is that we interact in so many different ways with so many different agencies. So take a city. They don't have a rail, they don't have airports, they don't have a barge terminal. So we have those pieces of transportation that are integrated into our port area that we can use when we're doing economic development. So that's like value added to everything that we do. So that's incredibly important. And we also don't have as many, we have our own RCW, so we don't have to delve into other areas that maybe cities or counties get caught up in around some of the policies and things. So it makes us a little more lithe in in our movement. The value of a port is that we collaborate with everyone, state, federal, city, county. So we're an integral part of all planning, and we really come to the table with everybody united on where we're headed.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Dyer, same question to you.
Well, it's a great question because the port's role is, again, unique. The cities, the states, they can't really incubate businesses. It's called gifting, I think, on their level or some form of that. Where the port gets to actually take the taxpayers' dollars and the money they create from other leases and stuff, and they can reinvest that into the community. They can buy property and hold on to it for a while, or build a building on that property and incubate small businesses until they can go out and get some air under their wings, to use my terminology, and fly on their own. So, you can't really do that within the city structure. The tax structure and the way a city or a county is ran, it's run much more slow and chuggy, I would call it, where a port can really get down granular pretty quick. If they decide to fund something that comes to the table, a good idea from somebody, a small manufacturer, just somebody who steps forward, they're able to respond to that much quicker than the average person, I might think. They can put something together fairly quick for a government entity and make that happen and get our community jobs, property, increase the value of the port's holdings, which is, in kind gives us a better value for the dollars we're spending there.
Mr. Dyer, I counted 2 transportation puns in that response, so that wasn't too bad for a port commissioner candidate. But you did also mention taxpayer money, and that's what our third question gets to, more specifically how it spends that money. And the question is, have you reviewed the Port of Benton budget? And if so, what are your priorities? Are there items that you maybe believe should be eliminated, perhaps added? Mrs. Rasmussen, you've been on the board for 18 months now. Tell us what you think about that.
Well, the $2.9 million we collect from taxpayers that money is intentionally used for capital projects on port assets. So that is our promise to our taxpayers that we're reinvesting their funds into our port district. So that right off the top is what's going on. Right now we're already getting ready to go into budget workshops for next year for 2024. And I can tell you at the top of our list is our rail. The rail is incredibly important to our community, to the region, to the state, to the nation. So money is being set aside. We're pursuing not only private and local dollars, federal, state dollars. We really look at the budget in a way that how do we give our taxpayers value added and guarantee that we're spending their money on our assets. It's incredibly important that we are managing our facilities and ensuring that they're maintained properly. We just put in place a new accounting system and work order system so we can actually tell, okay, this piece of property, we're having to do this much maintenance, and it needs these things, because we want to be, at the ready to grow and maintain the assets that we have.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Dyer, we could turn to you with that question as well, looking at the budget for the port.
Well, I have not a good chance to line item it, but there are a few things that pop out from previous budgets. The biggest one is that there's a huge debt load now. The port has taken on, and I guess if elected, I'd want to dive into why now we are realizing a $9 million debt when it was pretty much debt-free a few years ago. So not to say that's a bad thing. There's such thing as good debt, but I'd like to look at that and see what that dollar was spent at. Another one is a number of things that are spent on the maintenance department and things like that, and it's kind of been in disarray lately, and I'd like to see some answers for the dollars being spent. So there's maintenance programs and maintenance personnel, but I don't see that that's been a plus, so I'd want to see those dollars and see if there's a return on them, the proper amount. And travel budgets for the commissioners. They a lot of times take a lot of nice trips, and I just, looking from the outside in, it looks like a poor return on that investment. I'd want to see maybe just one commissioner go and bring back something that's tangible.
Mr. Dyer, thank you. Mr. Keller, that budget question turns to you.
Very good, very good. Cliff covered a lot of the things that I would talk about, and I'm still going to talk about them because I did review the budget very closely. I think there's a lot of money being spent on consultants, lots of money, and where the actual staff could be doing the actual work itself. The debt load between $8 and $9 million. $4 of the $1 million were borrowed on a bond issue to fund a storage building for Hanford Archives. I'm not sure that was a good use of taxpayers' money. And I was at a commission meeting, and I told my story on that. There's a lot. I agree with Cliff on the travel budget. Nope. Cliff on the travel budget. I mean, there's 3 commissioners don't need to go to long, Washington D.C., Florida, Hawaii. Maybe one can go, come back, and tell the other ones. Maybe report to the rest of the people and the staff on what's going on there. I did go over the budget very closely, and I have a lot more changes that I could talk about, but I don't have the time.
There we go. The nature of the beast here. Thank you, Mr. Keller. Appreciate it. Well, question number 4 brings us to the topic of the Richland Airport. We've already heard about it here in this program and its surrounding area. Now, the port published the master plan in December 2021, and I'm basically asking you to distill that 182-page document into a 1-minute response. Speaking of time needs here, Mr. Dyer, we're back to you for the first response here. What would be your priorities when it comes to further development of the Richland Airport?
Well, that's a great question because it's right at home where I live. So we want to make sure that the airport is always funded, and the master plan is kind of a unique document because it's a 20, even 30-year plan in it. But the first 5 years is what you pretty much got to lock in, as any government thing. Whatever's going to happen next year has to be funded and everything else. The second 5 years becomes kind of a wish list. Third 5 years becomes almost pie in the sky. By the time you get to 20 years, it's like, if we had all the money in the world, what could we build here? So master plans need to be read with that kind of a context. So the next 5 years, there was decent investment there, but currently it's not looking like it's going to hit that pathway, and that's disappointing. I think you should be able to hit your 5-year goals, and the 10-year goals are to strive for. 15-year ones, you might need to readjust. The master plan has just gone in, but they are already currently making some major modifications to that plan. And so I would ask, why does a brand new plan need modifications?
All right, Mr. Dyer, thank you very much. Mr. Keller, question to you.
I was the airport director for 13 years. I worked with the FAA. The FAA funds both the Prosser and the Richland airports, and they are the ones who fund the master plans to the tune of 95%. The port puts in 5%. All the construction projects, as Christy was talking about, the $3.2 million that the port put in, of that $3 million the FAA put in. That's what a master plan does. A master plan forecasts what should be done 5, 10, 15, 20 years out. I agree with Cliff again. The first 5 years of forecasted projects should be done and will be done with FAA money, 90% or 95%. One thing that we've been trying to get at the Richland Airport for a long time is a longer runway. Now, this is not to bring in 747s or anything like that. We need to bring in more business turbine aircraft. We need about another 700 to 1,000 feet. And it's not going to bring in all the big jets. There's not going to be huge noise problems or anything like that. But I think that's something that we had an opportunity to do, and we lost it in the last couple of years.
And Ms. Rasmussen, same question to you.
Well, I'm actually really excited. We have a new rendition of the plan because what we heard from our people at the airport is there is a need for more hangars. And so this new plan, working with our airport consultant, has designed, actually changed a plan to remove 4 hangars, and we're going to keep those. And we're going to work to change the way the runway comes in. We're going to add more airplane hangars, actually quite a lot more. So we're now working towards that because that's what we heard from the people at the airport. There's a wait list. People need airport hangars. And so we're responding to that rather than, and that's part of what you both spoke to about being lithe on your feet. When you're a port and you realize that the plan that was made pre-COVID or that was updated 2 or 3 years ago, it might not meet the needs of where we're at today. And actually the goal is to get to where we can extend the runway. But you have to prioritize those projects and work towards those. So it's been really nice that we have this new plan where we get to keep those 4 hangars, which was going to displace quite a lot of people, and have a better way to put this together.
Another area of some development includes Vintners Village in Prosser. I wanted to ask you about development. I knew we were getting to this one as well. Listed priority for the port. In fact, Port Literature today says on the development promotes shovel-ready parcels for wineries, restaurants, breweries, retail, and more. So as we turn this question to you, what ideas do you have for Vintners Village? Sorry, I'm going to Mr. Keller here. You get to answer first. Time is yours.
I don't know. No. I was very involved in the Vintners Village, the whole development from day one. I was there when we bought the land, we put in the infrastructure. It was actually meant for a bonded wine warehouse to begin with. And that fell apart. We ended up going to some smaller wineries. Hey, you want to start a winery? We found Yellow Rose Nursery who came in. The wineries parlayed on after that. They said, if they're going to be there, we want to be there. It's a gorgeous place. And a bunch of the wineries came in. We bought an additional 20 acres of land. The shovel ready, it is ready. It's got infrastructure, it's got water, sewer, it's a beautiful location. They need to price it right. It's not selling. It needs to be at a price where people will actually pay the price to actually develop. It's very expensive to develop a building now. I mean, it used to be $200-300 a square foot. It's $400 or $500 a square foot just to build a building this day and age. So they got to make the land approachable and reasonable enough to at least get something started. I've learned all along for the 30 years, it's like a domino effect. You get something going, somebody comes after that. And it works.
Mr. Keller, thank you very much. And Ms. Rasmussen, same question to you about Vintners Village.
Vintners Village is a jewel. And to that point, we have some things on the horizon that is going to take care of that anchor position. And what I appreciate about Vintners Village is it's really turning into a walkable area where not just wineries but breweries and more of that sort of feel. There's now, you can rent a bicycle and ride around. I just noticed that Airfield Estates is going to have a democratic conversation there. Like, that's kind of becoming a hub for all things wine and all of the above. And I really appreciate that because we want to have places like that where families can come and come all together and have a great experience.
All right. And Mr. Dyer, that question to you now.
I got to also be around when Vintners Village was just getting started and being a part of the Prosser Airport, kind of in the community. I got to see what the energy of that went around there. And pretty soon you have aircraft flying into the Prosser Airport and being taxied down roads to do a display for a winery. So it's very much a unique place in the Tri-Cities. It is a walkable area. I've enjoyed some meals up there myself. The food is good, the wine is good, the atmosphere is awesome. To continue that in a reasonable fashion, I do believe once you put the seed money into something, that you need to hopefully see that realized, and then the extra people who come, you don't have to quite convince so hard. I think we've lost some energy during COVID, so there might be a new opportunity to have to reseed that plant.
All right, thank you, Mr. Dyer. Now, our sixth and final question, with a reminder we do have time for closing statements, is sort of a goal-setting questions. And how about this? We've discussed a couple of ongoing projects, priorities for the port. What's one new economic goal you wish to have the Port of Benton implement or complete during your tenure? Ms. Rasmussen, your question first.
I think our community, not just for the port, but for our entire community, if we can become the hub, the supply chain hub for advanced manufacturing, I think it would be absolutely incredible, because we'd have an opportunity to not just impact our region, our state, our nation, but internationally. There's great opportunities. We have the highly skilled workforce. We have shovel-ready property. We have all the different ways of transportation. We have the high-low dock. We have trains, planes. This is really partnering in our community, not just with the port, but with the city, the counties, the state, the federal government. We have an opportunity here to be the place where we have clean energy, where we've cleaned it up, where we have a fertilizer plant start that's clean fertilizer that's worth $1.8 billion to our entire community. It's a $9 million project. I mean, this is the land of opportunity here in the Tri-Cities, and we are the place.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dyer, an economic goal for you.
Well, I do see that the port has made a number of new changes that direction, and I would want to look at some of those. The clean energy things I'm very interested in. I think that there's an avenue to find some great jobs and save the save the planet type of stuff. But I don't want to do that at the cost of the small little individual projects as well. I think the port has had its successes really being granular about its effects to the community. And I just feel right now that we need a little bit more of that. And so my project would be to find the way to do both, to look after the future, to find the big thing, but don't trip over a small rock. There's some opportunities out there in the community to get this post-COVID world kind of started. We've lost a lot of brick and mortar. What are we going to do with that? So I'd want the port to maybe come in and buy some buildings and support that and get incubators going and get some more opportunities so people can get out and enjoy life again.
All right, Mr. Dyer, thank you very much. Mr. Keller.
Well, one of the main things that we should concentrate on is the diversify from the Hanford area, the Hanford site, et cetera. We need to help and promote small business and the growth of small business. That's where business starts. It's the small businesses that we have here in town and the ones that are going to spin off into the future. It's just the way it is. I think the port has done a really good job in their infrastructure and their buildings. I think they need to put a little more money into the maintenance of some of their buildings and improve basically the eyesight and the show of the building, et cetera, and attract new small businesses to the area. That would be my priority, is to help small business.
All right. And now, as promised, I wanted to give some time for some closing statements, a final word on some final thoughts you have. Mr. Dyer, we'll start with you.
Well, again, I'm humbled to actually even be a part of this conversation here. It's not, politics weren't something I had on my horizon, but recently with things that were happening and specifically at home and with the Port of Benton in my own community, I felt like if you don't, you can't speak up unless you're willing to put yourself up there and say, okay, I will run for this office, and if elected, I will do a good job. I will make sure I listen to both sides, all sides, not just both, there's many sides. And when a decision needs to be made, I'll make it on the best behalf of the community, not my own personal needs.
All right, Mr. Dyer, thank you very much. Mr. Keller, your closing statement, sir.
The 30 years that I spent at the port is almost half my life. And I loved my job, as I said at the beginning. And it was not a job. I looked forward to going to work every morning. And we have such a wonderful community here. And I think we have done such a great job. And COVID did interrupt and interfere with a lot of things. But I think we need to get some things jump-started again. I would love to be a port commissioner. It's something that I've always wanted to do. It's a goal that I've had. And I think I'm the right person for it. I know I'm the right person for it. So please, vote for me for Port of Benton Commissioner.
Mr. Keller, thank you very much. Ms. Rasmussen, your closing statement.
Priority one as a re-elected commissioner is providing fiscally conservative leadership. It's essential in ensuring fairness for all port assets, longevity, and future growth. This requires a focus on assets' solid return to taxpayers. The Port of Benton's strategic plan clearly defines needs and growths to position the assets at the ready. This includes advocating for our dams, securing funding options for our rail, airports, and facilities. The culture and the leadership at the port has allowed growth and strengthening in all staff abilities, which provides a foundation to accomplish all this work. It really is all about the people. Our community deserves reliable baseload generation energy to support industrial growth, small business growth, the continued timely cleanup of the Hanford project. We just really need to be strategically focused on workforce development and how we're going to upscale and provide those career opportunities for our families. I have found this to be the most intellectually stimulating position I've ever been in. It is an honor and a privilege to serve our community in the Port of Benton. So please vote for me.
Well, Cliff Dyer, Scott Keller, Christy Rasmussen, thank you so much for taking some time out today. Candidates who will appear on the primary ballot for Benton County Port Commissioner, we appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt.
And that moves our program now to the Richland City Council, a contested primary for the position 6 seat. Now, some setup for this one listed as a 3-person race if you've looked at a sample ballot. In our work to get the program together, Kent Madsen informed us he's not campaigning and said sending his support to another candidate. So today we have 2 in studio with me, Kurt Meyer and Mark Newman. Thank you so much for being here today. Excited to find out more about your candidacy and, of course, some of the issues that are important to you. Now, we've informed you of the rules. That includes 1 1-minute responses to our questions, but 90 seconds for some opening statements. Mr. Meyer, we'll begin with your 90-second opening statement, sir.
Okay. My name is Kurt Meyer. I've lived in the Tri-Cities, specifically Richland, for the past 7 years. I'm not from the area originally. I'm ex-military, and so I've lived all over the country. And when my family grew, we decided we needed to put down roots somewhere so that my kids would have that stable hometown that us military brats don't get. And so we looked all over the place, and we picked Richland as the place we wanted to raise our family. Since we've moved here, everyone in our family participates in community service. My most recent was as a member of the Board of Trustees for the Richland Public Library, which I served for 6 years. And I want to bring some proactive leadership to the City Council that I think is missing. Right now, too many people, too many businesses need to petition council to make changes, update our outdated code, update our outdated zoning laws. And I want a council that will reach out to the public, find out what the needs are, and proactively address them, rather than putting that burden on the people who live here. There are a lot of opinions about the way to handle these things, and I think a lot of those opinions aren't heard by the council traditionally, and so I want to bring that ear. I want to be someone who listens and proactively fixes things rather than waiting for the problem to come to the council.
All right, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Mr. Newman, that same question to you, and not really a question, just your opening statement, sir.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks for having me. And Kurt, great job. And not dissimilar to you, I have been in the service and I lived here for 7 years, but not as empty nesters. No, our oldest is 12. He's in middle school, and our daughter is going to wrap up 5th grade at White Bluffs, where she gets to walk to school. Also being in the military, I moved around an awful lot. But when we visited here, there was without question, this is where we want to raise our family. And from the moment we got here, I have been tireless with just trying to connect with this community, whether it was my participation in Leadership Tri-Cities, or my time on the Richland Economic Development Committee, or on the My Tri 2030 Visionary Board, just as active as we can be. You know, having a couple of young kids and knowing that this is where our roots are now is beyond inspiring to be a part of it. I live in Richland. I'd only ever lived in Richland since we've been in the Tri-Cities. I work in Richland. I work as I have my own business. And I think that's a voice that I think is maybe missing, the free market voice on the board. But the board is not a one-man show. We're some of our parts. I think we all bring strengths, and I think my strength would be my business acumen and history and my investment I make in the community every day as a business owner, based in hospitality. So really listening to and constantly connecting with and caring about what the people in the community are saying and believing I can be super helpful.
All right, Mr. Newman, thank you very much. Very nice to meet you. Thank you for being here as well. And the first question is a bit broad, and I know opening statements usually touch on this a little bit, but we hope to set the table for some of your council priorities. So in your opinion, what's the most pressing issue that the Richland City Council faces? Mr. Myers, our questions start. We'll start with you.
Okay. So there are a couple of pressing issues that the council faces. One of them is, as I mentioned before, the city code is outdated. Nobody's really putting too much effort into fixing that. We still have city code ordinances dealing with curfews for teenage dance halls. We still have curfews for roller skating rinks, plural. I'm not sure how great that is for after hours nightlife, but we also have significant problems with things like parking minimums for businesses. As an example, you get one parking minimum for a restaurant and then another parking minimum if that restaurant is a pizza place, with the idea that most of their business is delivery. Well, it's 2023 and all restaurants are delivery now, so why do we have different permits? It makes it hard to open a business when you have to navigate these differerences. And the other pressing issue is the traffic planning with the proposed pedestrian skyway at G-Way and the couplet for Jadwin and G-Way. These things are going to be wildly expensive, and we don't really have any evidence that they're going to help. So we need to take a hard look at these.
All right, we'll move that question to you. Goal setting, priorities for your term as a potential council member.
I want my neighbors to be inspired and have an easy way of business, to inspire more free market. Some of those archaic codes and such certainly need to be looked at. But I do believe in that G-way traffic pattern change. And I have seen proof in other markets and other cities where crosswalk and a more walkable city. I think Richland has the best opportunity for a walkable city. And I think it's going to be about the overall aesthetic and security that our community feels while they're walking around, but we have to offer that. And I think the only way we're going to offer that is by slowing down the traffic, creating more parking, on-street parking. You're going to be able to engage a lot of the G-Way and Jadwin. It's just going to be a bigger park-like walk-around environment for our downtown.
Mr. Newman, thank you very much. And for question 2, we want to give a bit of current events context here, an example of the delicate role a city council member plays in some of the public discourse. Many viewers out there probably know about this. In April, the Emerald of Siam in Richland protested the council after hosting a drag show on Easter Sunday. A council member encouraged citizens to write politely in protest. The Emerald of Siam says the response was anything but polite: hate mail, harassment, death threats. That city council member faced some of that as well. So given that situation, Mr. Newman, we'll start with you. Do you think the council should make public statements in this manner about businesses, events, or activities, or should they remain more neutral?
Well, I think we have to follow our passion. I think these are, nonpartisan, volunteer, allow us to help our community. And if we can't lend our voice, well, then we're just maybe empty seats. I think that we have to have a personality. We have to be approachable and engaged. We have to have an opinion that we can be honest and transparent about. But I also know how hard it is for a restaurant like the Emerald of Siam to continue to thrive and to still be open after all the limitations that they went through for COVID. The fact that they're still here, still swinging, doing what they can, well, that's important too. We have to keep these businesses going and eliminate any of those kind of challenges. I think specifically that was a very high emotional situation, and I think that a level ahead of conversation, I believe I could have brought some better discussion to both parties and a less ugly situation for our city, I believe.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Newman. Mr. Meyer, the same question, maybe I'll rephrase it a bit, just sort of lessons learned in terms of the public discourse in terms of a city council member.
I profoundly hope that there were lessons learned during that event. I fully support the Emerald of Siam putting on exactly whatever show they want to put on in their venue. And I also support individual city council members' right to free speech. They can encourage or not encourage or say whatever they want to say. But I hope that in the future, Richland City Council will be a little more hesitant to encourage people to tell a small business owner how to run their small business. That's not what the council should be focused on. It was a distraction, and it really isn't a council issue. This was one council member expressing their personal views, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you need to be conscious of the influence you have when you have a pulpit like you get as a member of public service. And so I think that that's fine after hours, but to be sitting at the council ledger saying that is a different issue.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. And question 3 does build off that a bit, and we should note this question actually comes from a Richland high school class. We thank the Bombers for their interest and engagement with our forum. And here's that question. I'll ask it the way they asked it. There are those who would say that the current council sometimes makes decisions that are in the best interest of their personal beliefs or dealings. If you agree, would you support an ethics committee to review decisions of the city council? And if you do not agree, what would be your response? Mr. Meyer, back to the top with you.
So I'm going to completely sidestep the part of the question where we talk about people making decisions in their own interests. It's human nature that it's hard to make a decision that goes against your personal interest, and that's fine. Hopefully these are positions that are populated with responsible adults who can take that into account when they make their decisions. As a separate issue, regardless of which decisions are being made and by whom, I absolutely support an ethics committee for the city council. I think I'm somewhat amazed that it keeps getting kicked down the road and not set up. I think it's one of the most important things that a city council can set up. So when I say I support an ethics committee as part of the city council operations, that's not a commentary on any specific member of the council or even on the council as a whole. It's just my belief in good governance that the people in charge should be held accountable, if only by an ethics subcommittee with some power to enforce their findings.
All right, Mr. Meyer, thank you very much. Mr. Newman, same question to you.
Well, I believe that's why we vote for who we put up there. So we find people that we relate to, that we believe in, and trust that they will have a shared opinion and a shared vision, and that's why they're put in that chair in the first place. And that's why I'm really thrilled to be a part of this, to see if just I can be that voice. Secondly, as far as an ethics committee goes, I believe as long as it's not bureaucratic, slowing down progress, and in the place of healthy conversation, which is sometimes I think the best way to get to the bottom of something.
All right, Mr. Newman, thank you very much. And question 4, this one's not breaking news, but the world, your city, county, not getting cheaper. Mr. Newman, we're first here. What role would you like to see the city council play in addressing or creating affordable housing in Richland?
Our community has such a wide range of, I'm trying to find the word, Matt. We have a really rich diversity in our economics, so what people can afford. We have first-time home buyers that are right now unable to buy first-time homes. There's just no inventory for them. The time I've been here for 7 years, it's been an explosive expansion and growth of property values, being supported by the banks and the inspectors, and it's great for the real estate market. But I think if we focus on identifying a path to first-time home buyers, and then also the people that have earned their life, that want to have a more acreage, that's available for them too. I think they have enough geography, enough opportunity, without even sprawling out, where we can create more opportunities. It's inevitable. We have to be able to protect our first-time home buyers.
And Mr. Meyer, I'll turn that question to you now in terms of addressing affordable housing here in the area.
This all ties back to our antiquated code and some of the zoning laws that are tied into it. As an example, in the Research Park area where we currently sit, the typical 5/1 building where you've got retail, office, whatever, commercial on the ground floor and then apartments above, the only way you can do that in the Research Park area is if the ground floor is purely office space. So you can't have a grocery store for the apartments, et cetera. And so stuff like that needs to be fixed. It's stuff that was written in the 80s, and it was super popular development theory back then, and it just isn't fitting what Richland is today, and it needs to be changed. I also believe that we need to encourage density where it's appropriate, where density is already being established. Obviously, people need to be able to buy land. I like having a backyard. I need a place to park my car. I have a family and we have a bunch of hobbies, and so we want space. But there are also people who don't want to buy a home and they just want to rent an apartment, and that's nearly impossible too. So if you work a full-time job, you should be able to live in Richland. But right now, it's out of the price range.
All right, Mr. Meyer, thank you very much. And question number 5 about recreational marijuana. And now that the city of Pasco has approved cannabis shops within their city limits, do you believe that the Richland City Council should do the same? Why or why not, Mr. Meyer?
Yeah, it should. It should have done it years ago. In the past, I had an opportunity to have a conversation with a sitting council member at the time. I'm not interested in calling people out, but I wanted to relay the information. I said, why don't we do this? We're passing up all these tax dollars. It's an opportunity for tax income that we could be leveraging, and right now we're chasing all that business out to other cities. And they said, oh, well, we did it in an analysis, and it turned out that we'd only make, $500,000 or so a year on that. We didn't feel like it was worthwhile. And where I grew up, $500,000 is worthwhile. So I'm not convinced by the arguments. I think that they're not based in an approach of governance. I think they're based in deeper personal values, and that's valid. I'm not telling people they're wrong to not want cannabis dispensaries in the city, but I think it's a missed opportunity, and it's something we're leaving on the table.
All right, Mr. Meyer, thank you. Mr. Newman, same question to you. Do you support Richland supporting marijuana business?
I disagree with Kurt, but I think it's more than just about the dispensaries and maybe the tax dollars, but conversations with our children. How do we have that conversation? Like I said, my children are in middle school and elementary school, and when I was in middle school and elementary school, it was a say no to drugs, and cannabis was a part of that. So it was bred into me, and I think we have to find a language and an education and an opportunity to communicate with our kids about what was legal and maybe now not or illegal. And we have to really, I think, as a community, before we start looking at our tax dollars, make sure our kids are safe and that we're educating them the right way and we have a message as it relates to all the drugs that are out there and our neighboring states being approved. Other things are happening. You know, we're a wine culture, but we'd be foolish if we didn't think that there was a market share being taken away by whether it's tax dollars or people using these other recreational, considered A-OK drugs now. So that would be my first, would be about making sure that we have a right education program.
All right, Mr. Newman, thank you very much. And our sixth and final question before closing statements again comes from Richland High School as well and centers around downtown revitalization. And if elected, do you have any plans to improve the master planning of the city to address some of the older and empty buildings downtown? And if so, what experience or ideas do you have to support this plan, Mr. Newman?
Well, I think I mentioned in my opening statement about the importance of the aesthetic of Richland and the ability to be in a beautiful environment. We are so rich in history here that we have to identify what's historic and what's old. And we have to identify and enrich and protect what's historic and adds value and part of the charm of our community, but also kind of get rid of what's old and what's not working, what's antiquated, and what's slowing down our progress. Because there are pockets of downtown businesses which should be completely reworked if it was up to me. But we have to find ways as a community to make that happen.
All right. And Mr. Meyer, same question to you. Just downtown revitalization, what can we do?
Yeah, well, what we can do is fix our zoning codes. I know I keep harping on this, but it's important. Those things are what guides the development of a city. And this is one of the first things you notice as you drive down George Washington Way is the proliferation of little 2, 3, 4 unit strip malls, while older, larger strip malls sit 60%, 80% vacant. And you can't incentivize use of existing buildings if the city is adopting a master plan that allows just unfettered new building of commercial properties. And so there's a balance to be had because you don't want to stop people from developing and you don't want to limit the commerce that can come into the city. But you do need to be able to guide the needle so that there's a balance between it being economical to move your business into an existing facility and conscious, considerate development of new commercial properties. And we need residential density to be tied into that.
All right, Mr. Meyer, thank you very much. Well, before we go, we do have time for closing statements. Honestly, a number of topics we could have covered. League of Women Voters gives me a list of questions. I wish we could include them all, but we need a few hours to do that. But I will say this, we do have a little extra time. So I'll say a minute and a half for closing statements. You'll have 90 seconds to finish it out. Mr. Meyer, I'll give you your 90 seconds now.
Okay. Hopefully by now it's obvious that I feel strongly about the way Richland is being developed. It's not enough for me to have a house here and for my family as it is today to be happy. My children are in high school and middle school right now, and one day they'll graduate, and I want this to be a city where they can afford to live after they graduate. Today that wouldn't be the case. And that's something that I think needs to be fixed. And that's not something you can fix overnight, but it's something that requires the will on the entirety of City Council to get those changes pushed through. There are a lot of social issues that are sort of broader state or national issues that kind of get brought up during City Council races. And I think, this is a place where multiple points of view can thrive. But I also think that it's important for the City Council to be focused on City of Richland issues and not bring wider narratives into the decisions they make. It really needs to be, how do we smartly develop this city so that it can grow to meet its potential without excluding any of the people who grew up here or want to move here from being a part of this community. And so that's my focus.
All right, Mr. Meyer, thank you very much. Appreciate your time. And Mr. Newman, your closing statements.
Well, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for inviting me here. And thank you, Matt, and thank you very much for your time and getting to know you. Appreciate your passion. And it just shows, wish there was a couple seats on the city council, because everyone who's raised their hand is committed, and I believe, and has the right passion, the right reasons. And when we talk about our children, you bet. I mean, I want to build a legacy here. I want to be a part of the future of Richland. I want to share whatever influence I have for the benefit of our community. We touched on important things. Free market's a big deal. But like you said, there are a lot of issues that people want to bring up that are broad or more maybe even global, national, state. And here we have to be about people, not the politics. And I think that I can promise that. I care a great deal about people. Very available, very approachable. If I didn't cover something, or if anyone has any questions, I'm super easy to find, and I'll leave it at that. I run my own business, and I'm just beyond grateful for this opportunity to meet you and share my views and my promises.
All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time today. I know this is quick, maybe it lasted too long, depending on your point of view, but I really appreciate you coming to our studio here in Richland. Kurt Meyer, Mark Newman, candidates for this summer's primary for Richland City Council Position 6. We appreciate your efforts here today. And one more thank you to all of our candidates. We believe very strongly in creating and encouraging more informed voters, hence our partnership here. So before we sign off, I want to remind voters out there that primary election coming up on August 1st, also the deadline to register in person and to drop your mailed ballots into a box. If you do want to register online, that deadline coming up on July 24th. And our short series continues tomorrow as we turn our attention to a few Richland school board races, community conversations which affect your kids, so we'll look forward to those. And if you missed anything from this forum or would like to share it, you can find it on the Northwest Public Broadcasting YouTube channel. We'll do the same for our school board races tomorrow. On behalf of the League of Women Voters and all of our crew here at the WSU Tri-City studio, we thank you for tuning in.